On this episode of The Nursing Home Operator, I sit down with Shubam Gautam, whose path into nursing homes is a little bit different. He spent time as a Buddhist monk in the Himalayas, trained as a surgeon, worked in Alzheimer's research, and eventually started as a social worker in a 320-bed nursing home before eventually becoming its administrator. We talk about building trust with frontline staff, how to fix culture, what makes a great DON, and why every job in a nursing home matters. What I liked most about talking with Shubam is that he's a deep thinker with a ton of experience, both clinically and on the operations side. Every time I asked him a question, he drew on that experience and gave me really practical answers. You're going to enjoy this episode. Let's get into it. Appreciate you making some time to chat with me today. Well, why don't we start with this? Why don't you just tell me a little bit about your background? Because you really got into nursing home administration after a lot of success, right? And a lot of school.
Okay, so I'm gonna start. I'm gonna start from the age of 12 because what I'm gonna share is gonna be relevant for how I've been managing in the past my nursing home senior livings. I'm originally from India and I moved to US in 2007, like 20 years ago. At 12 years of age, I actually went to a monastery in. I used to live close to Himalayas in India, and I became a monk for 2 years and a Buddhist monk, and I stayed in a monastery where I kind of learned a lot of things related to compassion and how you can deal with difficult situations and stuff like that. And after completing that monastery part, I actually got into a med school when I was 15, which was pretty young for my age. And I continued that for almost 7 years. And I completed that I actually practiced as a surgeon in India for almost a year, and I got my immigration. I moved to US, and for a couple of years, I was doing research on Alzheimer's and dementia in Southern Illinois University, and I was working in a laboratory as well as for 2 years I did clinical research, which pretty much revolves around how to deal with dementia patients and how to talk to the families, like training and educating the families on how to understand what dementia is. So the research was revolving around that. And there was a component where I was doing research on how diabetes actually can lead to dementia when you get older. So somewhere down the line, I forgot everything I learned in the monastery. But eventually, I was studying to be a physician in US, and I was giving my licensing exams, but I did not had any money when I came to US, so I had to work, which kind of was putting my educational licensing exam on the side because I was working pretty much 10 hours a day. One of the doctors in Chicago approached me. He was opening his practice and he wanted somebody who can help him with the business development as well as administration part. So it was a two-person team and he opened his practice. I was involved in hiring people. I was involved in business development mainly, and that's where the journey starts. So I was actually going to nursing homes, hospice companies, home health companies, hospitals everywhere. But his practice was primarily, he wanted to grow it in nursing homes. So I started going there, started talking to admission directors. I started talking to executive directors and administrators. And because of my background, it was easy for me to get in because they wanted a connection with a physician too. So administrator want to have a connection with the physician so they can send them patients. And so I was talking to the nurses because I had curiosity. So all that happened. And subconsciously, what was happening was that I was watching things which were, I hate to say, I felt they were not working right. Like there were some things that were falling apart. There were some gaps. And I decided that I have this clinical background. I can learn administration. And why don't I get a license? So instead of pursuing my medical degree in US, why don't I become a administrator? So I gave my exams, I got my license. And one of my mentors told me that you can start as a social worker because that's where you really learn how to understand the families, their concerns, because you are directly in contact with the residents. An administrator might not have that leverage to be in contact with each and every resident for a longer period of time. So I started as a social worker in a almost a 320 bed building, and it was a huge building. And fortunately, my administrator got promoted, and I had the license, and she offered me the job of an administrator. And ironically, I did not knew anything about being an administrator. But she said that I will work with you and I'll train you. So for almost 2.5 years, I kind of learned everything on the job. And it was the time of COVID too. And luckily, my medical education infection control came in handy because I had a lot of experience with that in my med school. So the COVID spread was very low in my community. I was training my staff on a daily basis, and my staff trusted me because they thought that I have the knowledge to share it with them. It's just not coming from Google. So it was something that I did for 2.5 years.
Can we jump into that a little bit? Because I think
Sure.
building that trust is so big. You're talking about specifically building trust with your staff. Is that right?
Yeah.
So the staff trust the administrator to take them in the right direction.
So, how I reached this conclusion of building trust is really important was because I was working in a building which was a revolving door for the administrator. The administrator stayed only for six
Mhm.
months and 6, 8 months in the new one.
Yeah.
The team kind of lost interest that they actually were putting bets how long he's gonna stay. And my style of management is that when I start somewhere, my first month is total observation. There is no judgment, there is no conclusion like this is wrong, this is no, just observe. And I'm not
Yeah.
talking about the P&L sheets. I'm talking about being on the floor, knowing each and every staff member and seeing like what is the gap that they are not trusting the administrator and they are looking for, oh, when is the new person going to show up, so why should we follow this particular administrator because he's going to leave. So how frequently they have to change because everybody who comes in with their own ideas, but the team thinks that
Yeah.
I'm not going to change because he's going to leave. But when I spent a month, I realized that there was a gap because nobody was paying attention to do one-on-ones with the team members. And when I say one-on-ones, it's not with the managers, it's with the new hires, it's with the people who are working overnights. So I used to go overnight like maybe 12 o'clock, not to check on them, but going there, and if
Yeah.
something is wrong, staying there to help them fix it. So what started happening was the next 1 or 2 months was all one-on-ones, where one-on-ones was not a interrogation. It was more or less like, I should say, you can talk to me about anything. I want to know what is going on in your life. I want to know if there is a personal
Yeah.
thing, if you want to share. So what started changing
Yeah.
was, and I kept to my word. Confidentiality, all those things I have learned in my med school. So I followed that. Eventually, what started happening was that they started opening up. And I would say 90% of the people want to do the right thing. There are only 10% of people who really want to create a chaos so that nobody focuses on them.
Yeah.
But my homework for these 2, 3 months gave me enough data. I shouldn't say data, but gave me enough information that these are my key players and they're not getting the attention they need. And people who are creating the chaos is actually affecting the whole culture, which is affecting my P&L, which is affecting my and like it was a chain reaction. So, of course, with the progressive discipline, I always give everybody a chance. And most of the people understand that, okay, this is not going to fly anymore. So they change, they get to a point
Yeah.
where they start working with me. But if somebody really doesn't want to change,
Yeah.
then I hate to say it that I would rather lose a person than affect my other 100 people who are working for me. So that's why
Absolutely. Yeah.
that's what happened in, I guess, my last three buildings. That's what I saw, and eventually, over a period of 6 months, well, every building turned around. As far as retention, I started getting new referrals. I started getting new applications.
Yeah. It sounds like a lot of times you'll walk in and there might be some troublemakers, right?
Yeah,
And other times you might walk in and there might just be an overarching problem with the culture.
yeah.
So how can an administrator tell the difference between having the wrong people in the building versus having the wrong culture in the building?
Well, having the wrong people in the building, what I've seen is that there are mostly two or three people who have cliques. Most of the people, when I was talking to them in my one-on-ones, that is a very when you talk to somebody face to face, they cannot lie for the whole hour, right? You can see it that they really have good intentions. They have just lost faith. But if you give them some support
Yeah.
and actually show it to them, because if I am, if they are struggling with, let's say if one of my nurses is struggling with getting a CNA to do something, if I go with her and talk to the CNA, that is there something that you need from me? The nurse feels that this administrator has not just told me I'll take care of it. He came with me. And when I went to the CNA, I didn't said that why are you not doing it? I'm saying, what do you need from me? The CNA doesn't feel threatened. The
Yeah.
CNA, if she's smart, if she understands, she'll be like, well, he's not here to fire me or anything. He's here to ask me that what can why is this happening? So mostly, if it's a culture problem, then it's widespread. Then everybody is coming with the same problem that
Yeah.
he's not doing the job. It's a blame game, to be honest. If it's a toxic people problem, then it's the same three names that come up anytime something goes wrong. Let's say if somebody is making an allegation of abuse just to get the other person in trouble. You find out that it is this three CNAs or this is this housekeeper. Every time something goes wrong, their name is involved. So it has to be a judgment call. So if it's widespread, it's a culture problem. If it's just few people, then it's mostly a toxic environment, and they are kind of running the show from behind. So that's how I do it, and I am very persistent in
Yeah.
addressing things, so that helps.
Shabam, it's fun to see a physician talk about these problems, right? Because I can see you and I can hear you diagnosing the problem, right? Is it widespread? Is it isolated, right? I want to get your perspective on another thing that
Sure.
I've been thinking about when I look at your background, and we might be backtracking a little bit, but
Mhm.
I look at the first building that you ran with 300 beds.
Mhm.
And I'm curious to get your perspective on what are some unique problems that a huge building like that experiences versus your 45-bed skilled nursing facility. What are some of those things that come with scale? And how did you handle those as an administrator?
So with a bigger building, 300 beds, 320 beds building, census is 280, something around that. The approach is that my biggest customer is my staff. It's not my residents. The reason I say this is that I don't have a capacity to reach 280 residents every day. So my staff does have my managers and then my line staff. They are interacting with them every day. So my focus is in a 300 bed building is my staff. They are my primary focus. So my approach with them is I have to create my managers in a way that they are a replica of myself. They need to be confident in making a decision, right or wrong, doesn't matter. They need to be so much comfortable with me that if they have done something wrong, they can share it with me and I'm not going to retaliate. Why did you do it? They should be confident that I don't know this. Can you help me get some more training? So my focus is
Yeah.
totally on my managers. If they are my replicas, they can function in my absence. I'm successful. Let's say if it's a 45-bed building, then I have capacity to reach every resident. So at that time, of course, I'm focusing on my staff, but at the same time, I have more hands-on with my residents, and I know who are the families who need more attention, who are the residents who need more tender, loving care. And so it's a different approach. I have worked in smaller buildings. My CCRC was just 21 skilled beds. It was totally Medicare private pay. So over there, since it was private pay, I had to pay a lot of attention to the families because it's paying from pocket. So I have to do a lot of family meetings, care plan meetings. I used to sit in them all the time so that before anything
Yeah.
shit hits the fan, I know. So, so it's a different approach with
Yeah.
bigger building and smaller bit. That's how I used to do it.
You talk a lot about family trust and the
Mhm.
trust that those families have in your organization. What do nursing homes underestimate about the family experience and how important that is? I'm talking specifically about when a patient comes into the facility or a resident comes into the facility. A lot of times, our whole focus is on that patient and making sure that they are getting great clinical care and having all of their needs met, which is very important, right? And the most important thing. On the other side of that, a lot of times they come in with a family who has lots of questions
Mhm.
and they want to be very involved. And it sounds like you have some experience in trying to build a trust with the family of residents or family of patients where they can trust you to do the right thing, to provide great care, to take care of their loved one. How does that pay dividends in the long run to win over the trust of the family?
Yeah. So let me put it this way. So whenever, let's say if I have an admission, I personally cannot do like an intake or do the PCC or point click care, whatever system is being used. I cannot touch the
Yeah.
patient, right? So imagine if it's
Hmm.
my mom going into a nursing home. I would have 1,000 questions. What I've seen is that the
Yeah.
families really don't know much about the organization. For them, they want to have a face like an administrator or a director of nursing who they expect to answer their questions because guess what? I am a medical person. I run the building. But a person coming from outside, if I go to an auto shop, I have no idea what he's gonna do to my car. I will ask 1,000 questions in a way that am I gonna be hit with a bill? Who is gonna tell me when my mom took a shower? So how I did it was that the admitting nurse is responsible for making sure, with the help of the DON, to to take care of all the residents' needs. My job was that I used to do a 7-day touch up and then 30-day touch up. Touch up, I mean a care plan meeting. So at least I offered it if they want to come. So the seventh day or a fifth day care plan meeting, I know we have time to do the comprehensive care plans, but I still need to meet the family 5 days into the within 5 days or 7 days. At that time, I am personally meeting with them so they know that who I am with my social worker. This is the social worker allotted to your particular mom, family member. They have questions about finances. They have questions about their diet. They have questions about who is the physician, how long they're gonna like. They have 1,000 questions, and mostly they are pretty much the same. Everybody has like pretty much the same questions. Once I have a leverage because if I say something, they trust me because of my background too. Like, and I used to tell them everything very honestly. So if they were asking me how long my mother is gonna stay here, I would just tell them that I cannot tell you that because it's a recovery process. We will do our best. Rather than saying, I expected 3 weeks. The honesty goes a long way. And I have this feedback from the families that you're not just saying things just to stroke our ego or just to say what we want to listen.
Yeah.
And I used to say, I only used to get the doctors I trusted and who were really serious about the patient. So I said, we will do our best, but I cannot tell you. So my honesty went a long way. I kept the communication channel open. If even a little thing has happened, communicate it to them before they come 3 days later and find out. Let's say if clothing goes missing, very common thing. It went to the laundry, never came back, all those minor problems. Call them and tell them this has happened. 95% of the time, families just appreciate getting that information. So, my job is to open that channel of communication, keep transparency. And of course, there are some difficult families which want to go the different route of suing you or everything, but most of the families understand. And the communication goes a long way. If they don't know something, they can assume some things and then it's opening a can of worms. You are then explaining it later. And if a medication error happens, share it with them. It's not a problem. We have to report it to the state anyway. So all those things I try to keep in the forefront, thinking that if it's my father or my mother, I would rather like to know rather than something bad happens and then later on my mom is in the hospital back again. So that has
Yeah.
gone a long way.
Clear and effective communication while not over promising and under delivering. I think that goes a long ways. I will often say that that is probably one of the hardest parts of running a nursing home. But I'm curious to get your take on what you think the hardest part of running a nursing home is.
This is a tricky question because there are so many things that can go sideways. Well, when I started in the industry, I used to think that surveys are the hardest thing. But I very soon realized they are really not. If you just be start if I when I started becoming more proactive, then I realized that surveys only happen when things have gone really wrong. So the hardest part which I
Yeah.
felt over the years was how to build a team. Again, I'm coming back to the same thing. How to build a team who is confident enough and trusts the administrator that the right thing will be done. If a good team is in place and it might take a couple of months, that is because you're not dealing with a machine. I was dealing with, in my 320 bed home, I was having 200 employees, at five, I guess. So 200 personalities, getting them all together to do a common thing was the most difficult thing. And I was very open with my team. Like I used to tell them, you don't have to be friends with your coworker to be doing your job, but you are a professional. After you leave here, you don't have to talk to your coworker. But when you're in the building, your actions affect the results which my residents are going to get, and they are your residents too. So that kind of changed like the dynamics. But the most difficult thing was getting everybody to agree on the same thing and having them understand that I am the captain of the ship, but you guys also have the right to make decisions. And we
Yeah.
say it's a family, but it's creating that atmosphere of cordial relationship. I wouldn't say friendship, but cordial relationship. If disagreements happen, we all are adults, we can figure it out. We don't have to be shouting or
Yeah.
anything. So all those things were the most difficult to build up. Once they're built,
Yeah.
then it's a piece of cake.
Yeah, absolutely. Getting 10 to 15 strong-willed department heads to agree on something is a
Yeah.
challenge, and navigating that it can be so tough.
Most difficult is getting the admission director and the sales director and the DON to agree that we can take this resident. It's the most difficult part. So
Yeah.
that's something is always challenging.
Yeah, I feel like the more admissions you bring in, the harder the job of the DON is. And so they're always, there's always some sort of conflict there. Yeah, it's tough to
Well,
navigate those personalities where you were, trying to build that great team. And in your opinion, what's the hardest job in the nursing home? Of those 205 employees, who had the hardest job?
this I everybody's job is equally hard. So I wouldn't say that it's
Yeah,
my job that's hard. Nobody can do
yeah,
my job. I cannot do a housekeeper's job. But it's set up in a way that if we don't respect the job of the other person and think that if I am a DON and a maintenance guy only has two employees, two maintenance assistants, I have like 15 nurses and then I have CNAs, my job is much difficult. No, his job is equally difficult because if there is a leakage in the building or if there is a fire in the building, whatever is happening, it's his job becomes extremely important at that time. I feel everybody has their role and nobody can replace anybody. And so the way the system is set up is respect the other person's job. Don't make it difficult thinking that you have a different title. Every title is needed. So you cannot consider your title better than the other person. So I would say it's actually administrator job becomes the least important if every other manager is doing their job, because then the machine is running smooth. But I've always gone in the way you are equally important, and you cannot disrespect the other person because he only have two people or three people in his, or housekeeping has just seven people in the building and you have 30. It doesn't make a difference. Would you like your nurse to do a housekeeping job? No. And a housekeeper cannot do a nurse job. So it's all, I would say everybody's job is difficult. They are equally important and equally hard, and respect everybody's
Yeah.
department. So that's how I develop the culture.
You mentioned that the dynamics between, admissions and your DON and the administrator are oftentimes just difficult to navigate, right? What does a great director of nursing look like to you? What do you look for when you're searching for one?
So, couple of things when I interview my director of nursing. One thing I always look for is that they should they should be willing to learn. They should not be having an attitude that I know everything and I'm going to make a decision based on that mindset. They should be open to
Yeah,
feedback from even from me or from anybody who is there. That is one criteria that humbleness that I look for. That is the personality part. The other thing is, if admissions director person job is to get the admissions in, because hospitals want an answer in 15, 20 minutes. My DON, what I look for is my DON capable enough? Like, I want my team to be replica of myself. Is my DON able to train their staff that her phone is not constantly ringing, so she is not burned out?
yeah,
She has that skill that she can have these nurses on the floor who exactly know what the DON wants. That training part, can she do that? Can she be firm but still compassionate? Like, that skill has to be there. I'm not saying she has to be rude or anything, but firmness is a little bit
yeah,
different, that I'm not going to allow this, with a very respectful tone. Yeah, that's something.
yeah,
Other thing is that, is she able to question the administrator about the decision? Now, this is, I'm saying in a ironic way, because I felt that sometimes an administrator says something and he thinks that this is how it's going to be done. I want a person who can challenge me
yeah,
and ask me, why are we taking this patient if this patient has this anti-cancer drug? I had this actual situation where I said yes to a patient, and he was on an anti-cancer drug, and we had to pay it from the pocket, and the price was really high. So we ended up losing money on that.
yeah,
So she questioned me. Did you even read the referral? This drug. She actually came into my room and she was angry. How did you? And that's when I felt that she's looking at the bigger picture, because she doesn't want to
yeah,
lose have like, I'm not saying we shouldn't take a patient in that scenario, but we need authorizations and all those things to be done beforehand, before the patient actually walks in. But I didn't pick it up, she did. And she didn't do it to make me feel like something less. She did it because she knew that we were going to lose money overall, and then I'll get a call from regional that you were not looking at the things. So she kind of saved me by arguing with me. So I want my DON to be like, not even my right hand, like literally like an equal. I would rather have somebody who knows 60 to 70% of the job and willing to learn the
yeah.
rest 30, than having 100 person who says 100% and only know 30%. And anybody who is willing to take ownership, I'm good with that. So that's what I, not
Yeah.
only DON, every department head should be able to take ownership of what they're doing and be confident. If something goes wrong, we can sit and fix it. You haven't shared anything about you. I would love to know your background and what got you
Yeah.
interested in doing
Yeah.
this
Well,
podcast, because it's a good thing you're doing.
yeah. Yeah. So I appreciate that. Yeah. So, basically, I'm an administrator. Before getting into nursing home administration, I was doing a lot of everything, right? So I was a software developer for a couple years. I kind of stayed in the private equity and management consulting role for about 4 years, and kind of decided that was looking for a change. And my wife, she has an uncle who works in this industry, and her uncle told me, well, if you're interested, just go into any nursing home and ask to speak to the administrator and see where that takes you. And literally, the first person that I talked to ended up offering me an AIT role, and I was in that role about a month later, and off to the races. So I kind of came about it through happenstance, but I've just kind of realized that this is an awesome industry, and it's not getting the respect and the publicity that I think that it should. A lot of people, when they think about nursing homes, they have a negative connotation in their head, right? They think, oh, I don't want to send my mom to a nursing home. Oh, they, they're mean in nursing homes or that sort of thing. And so I thought, you know what? Like I love this industry, and I want to kind of share what I see in the industry. And so that's kind of how this came about is I wanted it to be a place where we could really talk to industry experts. We could talk to the people who work in nursing homes and really get their perspective on what it's like to work in a nursing home, how we can do better, how we can improve the experience, provide better care, and all of those things. And so that was the reason that I started the podcast. And so now I'm interviewing industry experts like yourself in order to get tips on how to better operate, and also spread the word about nursing home administration and what it's like to work in a skilled nursing facility, assisted living, senior living, whatever it may be. At the end of the day, right, like I started the podcast in order to, interview experts in the industry, learn from them, get their perspectives, and also share a little bit about what nursing home administration and just working in a nursing home is all about. So that's the reason that I do it.
It's a really good initiative because we go through all these issues and problems, but nobody talks about them. And I was looking at your other podcasts on YouTube, and it's something that is really needed. And I guess it helps each other, to be honest, because I might not have faced the problems that you have faced, but they will eventually come in my life in future. And it's learning from each other, which is something that that's why I said yes to it, because I wanted to understand you are in another state. How is the life of an administrator is in another state? And I'm in Illinois. So it's something really good to hear from somebody who is in the same industry, what problems they are dealing with. So I would say it's a very good initiative. Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. And another reason that I love doing this is I get to meet, awesome people like yourself. I mean, you're operating in a totally different market, but, I hope that after this, you'll always feel comfortable reaching out to me if I can ever, help out or bounce an idea off me, and I'll do the same for you as well. Thanks for listening to this episode of The Nursing Home Operator. If you enjoyed the show, we'd really appreciate it if you'd subscribe, leave a review, drop a comment, or share it with someone in the industry. We're a new podcast, and every bit of support helps us grow. If you'd like to be a guest on the show, suggest a topic, ask a question, or share some feedback, there's a link to our Google form in the podcast description. We'd love to hear from you. Thanks again for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode of The Nursing Home Operator.